Hello and welcome along to TGP Has A Podcast. This week we're going to be chatting to Jean-Luc Taylor, a man who's competed in multiple different TGP series, disciplines, and he has taken success in two of them, with multiple titles in TGP1 and also a Project Cars title. He joined TGP Series in 2014, and after just a couple of races in TGP2, Dom realised his speed and knew we had to quickly move him up to TGP1, where he instantly had success, but not quite as quickly as he could have done. We have a chat with Jonas, and we hope you enjoy. Welcome along to TGP Has A Podcast. Obviously, you've joined us on an episode before as a topic, and you've joined us on an episode before joining us talking about what we were. So, but welcome, obviously, to the new format that we've got, of course. Where we're going to be talking about you. So, obviously, you've been part of TGP for many years now, and what are some of your sort of favourite memories of the series? You've had some successes, of course, over the past, but what's some of the things that you look back on fondly?
Yeah, hi Mike. Nice to join the podcast. Say some of my favourite memories. Well, definitely the two TGP1 titles I've won on F1 2013 and 14, and TGP Cars, of course, went in there. But yeah, there's been a lot of good memories over the years. Even battles I've lost, battles I've won. The good and the bad. But it's all been a lot of fun, and I've enjoyed it throughout the years.
Yes, and as you rightfully said there, you've had some great successes with us. Of course, you sort of hit the ground running with TGP somewhat. Let's not forget that you came in and was straight on the money in terms of pace, but we can't really get much further. We've done a complete episode in the podcast before about this topic, about season 15, but we can't really start talking about your TGP1 journey without talking about season 15. So let's the season as a whole. You were on great form. You had a great pace, but it went away at the end. Is it something that still frustrates you now?
Not so much. If I remember correctly, season 15 was my debut. I had a half season. I had a half season TGP2 beforehand. Started at Silverstone, and within two races, I already got the message from Dom that I was going up to TGP1 for the following season. Started strong. Australia led for a bit. Was in a good battle with Roy and Dan, and then the three of us coming towards the finish, pretty much nose to tail, and I lost by 0.5 of a second, which was a bit gutting. If the finish was about 5 meters further down, I would have won the race, but it is what it is. But throughout the first season, I had good pace. I was mixing up with the likes of Dan, Roy, Sebi, but just couldn't get that first win, really. I had a lot of podiums. I think I had more than Sebi and Dan that season, only one less than Roy. But I just could not get the win to save my life. I think I lost the win on the final lap on 3 or 4 races that season. Spain to Sebi on the last lap, he got me. Korea, quite memorably, Paul managed to hold on in the Mauritia ahead of me. Just held on to the win. Again in Austin, Sebi got me in the DRS on the last lap, as well as, of course, Australia in the opening race.
Did Sebi Horton start to haunt your dreams after this?
I wouldn't say he haunted my dreams too much. He was the reigning champ. I was a bit hesitant, not to go for any silly moves, but you could see from how he was in wheel-to-wheel battles, how he was champ, how quick he was, and maybe he got the upper hand on me. He was a bit smart with DRS in Austin, for example. He sort of hesitated a bit, let me go past, and got me on the straight, and then I couldn't make a move or anything. So it was sort of a learning experience in that regard, to kind of know little tricks here and there, how to get an advantage, make the winning move, and that.
Your first championship then came in season 16,
Yes.
beating the likes of Dan, Dean, Mark Leonard, and Ben. That was quite some achievement in just your second full season, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it sort of started in Bahrain. Got the pole, managed to put away early on, got the win, and it just, they tend to say, you get one win, it starts all coming together, you start getting more, and it definitely put me in a confident mood. Had a lot of good races. Hungary was a highlight. I remember there was a good race long battle with Ben and Dan. We were trading positions. I gambled on a one stop. They went for a two stop, and my tyres just held on, and I won the race. I think that race as well. I think Dan and Ben were just battling away, and if they just kind of followed each other, they probably could have caught me. But ultimately, I won out. So it was leading, but it was always close that season. Me, Dan, and Dean, we were the top three, and we were just sort of always taking points off each other here and there. Dean will win a race, then it'll be Dan, then it'll be me, then Dean. It was just constant yo-yoing back and forth. But it was the last couple of weeks I started to build the lead, and then I got to about 20 odd points clear. Then went to the final week, which was Austin and Brazil, and then it got a bit hairy for me.
It sure did. It was a close run thing in the end, and but you kept your head and you pulled through, and that was obviously quite an achievement for you.
Yeah, definitely. It's probably the unique distinction of being the only person to win TGP1 without actually being at the race they won. Because
almost, but not
yeah,
quite a posthumous champion.
yeah. What happened was obviously Austin. Me and Dan had a race on battle, but towards the end of the race, Martin caught right up to us, got the pace on us, made the move from both of us and won the race. So I went to the final round. I think I was 24 points ahead, but this is when we had obviously quali points for the top three. So I got pole in Brazil, so my lead was up to 25 points. Got through the quali session, get to the race, disconnect. At the time, I thought, oh God, that's it, because I knew Dan was quick. I knew for previous seasons Dan was always near the front of Brazil. So and this was a time when obviously you couldn't get back in the lobby if you disconnected. So couldn't get back in because your car wasn't there technically. It just instantly disappeared when you disconnected. So I can't rejoin the lobby and I can't spectate. So I'm literally just getting messages from Dom on the TGP account, like giving me updates on the race. And I hear Dan's in P4. Then the last few laps, Dom messages like, "Oh, Dan's got the lead here and he's looking good." And obviously the last couple laps, because there was a late safety car, Dean had got the jump on Dan at the start of the last lap. Dan had gone a bit wide, and I think someone sort of didn't really give him the room. He knocked it down to fourth, and I ended up winning by 13 points. And
Gosh.
I remember at the time I was in my room, just waiting for the results, waiting for the messages, and Dom's like, "Oh, holy shit, bloody hell!" And then like, "Yeah, you've won it," and I was thrilled with that. I definitely had my feeling was I'd
Unexpected,
lost.
shall we say?
Yeah, my feeling was I'd lost it because the way it was, the messages are coming through. Dan was in the lead. Dan was looking good, but I had no idea at the time it was a safety car restart and that everyone was bunched together. So I was thinking, "Oh, Dan's got a healthy lead," but that wasn't the case.
Well, it came out the way you wanted to in the end. Of course, taking the first title, and then obviously, you were still with TGP. Things didn't go away. You were still racing in the series, but the second title didn't come until season 22. And but before we get on to that, obviously we had I'm not going to say traumatic, but we had the entertaining season on F1 2014, which we spoke, of course, about with James just a few episodes ago, where he came out the title winner. But going into the last week, it was your good self who was leading the running. So, how, from your perspective, how did it unravel for you?
So obviously Monza, the wet race, started dry, went to Inters. I think it's probably somewhere on YouTube where you kind of hear me start shouting to Dan because he was my teammate that I'm going in the pits, I'm going in the pits, I'm getting the Inters. And it put me up into the lead ultimately. But James was closing up behind me. and it was the penultimate lap of the race, and my thought was that, it's getting wetter, but I can't see James making a pit stop on me in a lap, so I stayed out. He pitted for wets, and the grip just fell away. But I think I can't actually remember if I was first or second. In honesty, I think I was second, and that's probably what I think I was second because that's why I stayed out. Because I felt if I did the same as James, I was coming out behind him. But if I pitted, I had a chance of winning. And ultimately, it didn't work out. James got the win. So I was 8 points ahead going into the final round. But ultimately, I don't regret it because if I followed him in, I would have finished second anyway. It was a gamble, it didn't pay off. But it was doing that to win, then, take a definite second.
Some work, some don't they? At the end of the day, and
Yeah.
and that one, unfortunately for you, as we well know, didn't quite work out.
Yeah, and then we came to Abu Dhabi. I was third on the grid. Dean didn't have the best of starts. James got him into turn one. I tried to go around the outside of him into turn three, but he kind of forced me out a bit wide. I lost ground, and then they were just both too quick. And I was just struggling behind him third.
And what did you think when you saw James coming past you? Obviously, when he was on the wet tyres, what was going through your mind at that moment? Did you still think that it was on, or could you see the sort of momentum swinging?
I thought it was still on, but obviously at the time losing a win like that, my first thoughts were a few swear words, like to myself, like "oh, fair," whatever. And it was frustrating to have lost it because had I held on, there would have been a 14-point swing, so I would have gone into the last round 22 points clear rather than 8, which would have meant I could have just gone into Abu Dhabi, finished 5th, 6th, and the title was mine. And it didn't work out. It is what it is. Bit frustrating at the time, but I think others would agree, and I know James probably would agree. He was probably the best driver that season. He missed 2 weeks, and he still won the title. So there were other races I could have done a bit better in. I think Silverstone, I crashed out, and had I just managed to hold on the road, I wasn't having a great race up to that point. I think if I just stayed on the road, I probably would have got the few points I needed. But yeah, it's just how it goes.
But obviously, you didn't have to wait long to taste success again. Just a couple of seasons later, you finally took that elusive second title. Season 22, you got 19 out of 20 podium finishes that season. How come you just were able to find this next level of dominance?
I think Dom would claim something along the lines of, "Oh, I was racing with farmers" or whatever. But no, it was just I don't know why, but 2014 just clicked really well for me for some reason. Like I know a lot of people hated the game for how it handled and that, but it just seemed to suit me very well because every season I was top 2 in the championship, and that season I think obviously James stepped back for a season. Some of the quick guys are only just coming into their own, like the likes of Winsman and that, so they weren't quite up the pace that we know him for. So it kind of just left a bit of an open goal for me. And yeah, I was just winning races, getting podiums, and we're on about the 19 out of 20. The 20th was Silverstone, where I came 4th. And
So you only just missed out on it.
Yeah, that was a 4th place. And what had happened was the start of the race, there was a little bit of lag into turn 1. So I think it was whoever was first or second had a bit of lag. Owen was ahead of me. He reacted to it and had to slam the brakes to avoid hitting him. Or he did hit him, because I think Owen lost his wing. I've gone to the back of Owen. I've lost my wing. We've both pitted. He finished second. I finished 4th. So, yeah, I nearly had the clean sweep, but, it's just one of those unfortunate things. But considering the season I was having up to that point, I didn't really dwell on it or anything because I knew the championship lead was healthy. And I think what happened as well was quite a few of the guys behind were taking a lot of points to each other or having bad races, and I just didn't have a bad race.
And obviously that's key is consistency to winning a title. And you just were consistently quick that season. but sort of thereafter, you never really were able to replicate the successes that you had in the first couple of seasons. Then moving on to PS4 and PS5, at least so far. Why do you think that's been? What do you think has changed? Obviously, aside from the consoles.
I think obviously 2015 brought a new whole handling model, and I just didn't get on top of it very quickly. Because I would say with when a new F1 game comes out, normally I'm very quick to get up to speed, but I seem to sort of hit a ceiling that I don't really get past, while others just get better and better. I think it could be down to practice time. Obviously, having a full-time job, I'm not on the console as much. I don't practice as much, and I think a little bit's down to I don't enjoy the games as much as I used to. Because when I started out in TGP, I could be on it every night with a few other guys from the league. We'd do races, 25% races for hours. But now it's like I'll just go on the game for like 1 or 2 sessions before the night of racing, just because I get a bit fed up with the game too quickly. It's not as enjoyable for me. Like I don't know what it was for the PS3 games, but there was just an element of enjoyment to it that I had that I could. For me at the time, I could sit on it a weekend on a Saturday and Sunday, spend 7 or 8 hours just racing online, racing away, having fun with it. But now I'd have a couple of races and I'm just like, I don't want to play it anymore.
And let's not forget, it's not just TGP1 that you've had success in TGP series. You are a TGP Cars champion. Let's not forget, and you could have been, and perhaps should have been, a 2 times TGP Cars champion. So, Jean, why don't we talk about the season 3 Laguna Seca race?
Oh God.
Let's reopen that wound, shall we?
Dear.
1 lap to go. No, final lap.
Yep, it's the final lap.
I'd say 3 corners left.
I think at the time I was just going up to the corkscrew, yeah, so a couple of corners.
And a disconnection.
Yeah, and unfortunately it's not like the current F1 games where you could just rejoin and your car would ghost around. Till then it just popped you out of existence. So it's so frustrating, because if I didn't disconnect, I had the title in the bag.
Yeah, and obviously you didn't, and you missed out on the title. That was your first shot, and did you and that was obviously on the original Project Cars game. Did you feel like that was your only shot at it? Did you feel like that was it? Owen was obviously becoming increasingly competitive. Chris Thurgood as well. Wingsman was coming into it very quick. Softy was always waiting in the wings. Did you feel like that was your only opportunity?
Honestly, at the time, yes, because the next few seasons, I think I missed a few weeks. I struggled with some of the cars. I just didn't quite have the performance some of the other guys did. Especially Owen. Owen still is ridiculously quick at those types of games. The LMP cars or Clio Cup cars, touring cars. There were a few other guys: Owen, Softy, Wingsman. Yeah, they were better at those types of cars than me. I'd struggle. I quite embarrassingly remember there was a race at Brands in the Clio Cup where I got lapped by Court, who was obviously very quick as well. Obviously, Brands Hatch not the longest track in the world, especially if we're on the Indy track, but I just could not find the pace at all. And yeah, I had the embarrassment of finishing a lap down on that particular race. So yeah, I did feel like that was it. I just couldn't compete with some of the fastest guys. If it's the right car, I could have. If it's a Formula Golf or Formula C, the open wheel cars, yeah, I'd happily could win. I remember, I think it was Ockerschleben one season. I was like 20 seconds clear.
What a track that was.
Yeah. Was it John Clement who said whoever came up with the first corner should be taken into a dark room and beaten?
I'm pretty sure it was, yes.
Yep.
He's not wrong.
Where it comes from.
He's not wrong.
Yeah, it's such a clumsy first couple of corners, but I went well round there. Did enjoy it. And obviously, I think that came back in later seasons, where in the GT3s, and it was still a lot of fun. Obviously, when it went to Project Cars 2 with the GT cars, it got a lot more competitive. The game felt so good to drive around in, the handling model and everything. It was a lot of fun. And I slowly started to build back up again, but I still didn't have the pace maybe someone like Owen or Softy would have.
And it was, of course, in the GT3s where you took your title in Project Cars in the penultimate season that we did, season number 9, beating Owen. Was that quite an achievement for you? Because actually, up until the last few races of the season, it didn't really look like you were really getting involved.
Yeah, I think early on the season, I was sort of there or thereabouts, but not really up the front. And obviously, there was a lot of guys. I think you had Softy, Phil. They were all up there. Jack Pearson, I think, was even up there, and
I
Luca
think
won
he
a
finished
race.
third that season. Yes.
Yeah. So there were a lot of quick guys. I think what helped me early on was Bruno. Um, Obviously, there was the race where Owen kind of got shunted into the pit lane by someone and got DQ'd. So
Oh yeah, we won't go into that. Yeah,
yeah,
that's a wound that
that
needs to
helped.
remain closed.
That definitely helped me a bit. But it was, as you said, it didn't look like I was really in with a chance the last few weeks. And I don't know what it was, but something clicked because I think I won 6 races in a row all of a sudden.
Yes. Yeah, well, it's the end of the season is when your form came into its own. You won 4 races back to back. You won 4 of the last 5 races, which is, I don't want to say effectively what gave you the title because it's a season long, but you'd only won 1 race prior to that all season, round number 4 in Imola in the feature race. But you took a clean sweep in Algarve, winning both the sprint and the feature. Snetterton, you won it, and Laguna Seca, ironically, you won at, which is
Yeah,
where you won the title as well.
yeah,
Um,
that
so that was
that.
that's put to bed a few demons from there.
Oh yeah, definitely. That was because when I saw that last round was there, I was like, oh god, it's not going to happen again, is it? Because I knew I was back in the title picture. We're at Laguna, and I can remember that race because I was just thinking to myself, internet, don't give up, please hold on, just don't, nothing go wrong, please, because I was in the position to win it. I think I had a car behind me, but I could have let that car go, and I would have been okay. But I didn't want to do anything silly and put myself in danger. But I was just trying to get to the end of the race as quickly as possible, just so lightning didn't strike twice. And yeah, my internet held on that time. Speaking of Algarve, I almost threw that one away actually, because it was a wet race at night, and coming out the pit lane there was a massive, massive puddle, and numerous guys were saying about how they were coming out the pits, they hit the puddle and they would aquaplane off the road. I hit that puddle and spun, and I spun into the grass, but I spun in such a way it kind of 360'd me back around the right way and back onto the road, so I only lost a couple seconds doing it, and I was still just ahead of Owen afterwards.
Goodness me.
Yeah, so that could have easily turned out
Ended
differently.
badly, couldn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Obviously, as we said, winning the title at Laguna definitely what's the word? Exercised some demons.
Yeah, we'll go with exercised.
Yeah,
So that was obviously that was huge, and as we said, beat Owen, who obviously had won the 3 seasons I think he did previously to that. Um, so that was obviously a very stealing the limelight away from him. Now you've competed in multiple different disciplines in TGP. Obviously, we talked about TGP 1 and 2. We talked about TGP cars, TGP dirt. Obviously, you competed in. You won some stages in TGP dirt, but never quite won a rally. You came close. I think it was in Scotland one season. Why was it that you could never go that whole hog?
I never really played that many rally games up until that point. The only ones I really played were like PS1, like Colin McRae Rally and that. So obviously I wanted to get joined in because when it got brought back for Dirt Rally 2. But there's a lot of people going up for it, and I thought, massive field, that's going to be fun. I was near the top end. I was in the top 10 consistently, but I wouldn't say I was comfortable driving the car on it because obviously it's all stage notes and one little mistake ruins it. And I just pushed a bit too hard at times as well, got myself punches. I think it was where obviously we had the season where we got put into different cars. I know a lot of people struggle with the Peugeot, for example, the 206, which I was in. But I honestly loved that car. I loved driving around in it on that way. Everyone was hating it. And I think it was against Scotland. It was the first round. And I messed up stage one. I got a punch. I struggled it to the finish. I was 45 seconds down on Roy, who won that rally. But over the rest of the stages, I gained 15 seconds. And I was just like, if I hadn't messed up at the very beginning of the first stage, I could have won that one. I seem to always go well at Scotland and Monaco. Really like
Well, that's where
racing
you got a
house.
podium, of course, in Monaco
Yeah,
as well.
yeah,
That was something else
yeah.
that's worth remembering.
I think I was teammates to Dom that season as well. Dom was fighting for the championship, and I remember he wasn't too happy with me, like not backing off for to give him the place. Because I was like, yeah, it's preferred. I wanted to go for the podium. I felt good around there. And the thing was, I actually did try to lift off. I tried to lift off and give Dom the position. I just didn't back off enough. And I think I was up like a few tenths in front. And I think he was furious. But he won the title in the end. So, got the manufacturer the title. So we couldn't have played too much in the end.
Well, it was huge, wasn't it? It's huge, really.
Yeah.
And let's not forget, obviously, TGP GT. Now, you were instrumental in trying to get TGP to have a GT season series, and it took until 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic when everyone started playing the game a bit more to finally get a season there. And you never really quite had the successes there that maybe some thought that you might. You only took one. You've only so far at least taken one race win, which is in the last season, Laguna Seca. Ironically again, holding off Roaring Court. Obviously, a couple of questions within that. I guess firstly, were you sort of frustrated that it sort of took so long to have a season on TGP GT, or were you just glad that it eventually happened?
I was glad it eventually happened because, God, I think I was playing GT online with like the likes of Rory, James, and Dan as early as 2013, 14. So we'd like been playing it for quite a while. Obviously, not so much once we got the PS4 because you couldn't really play Gran Turismo 6 on it, and it got discontinued online. We were waiting for Gran Turismo Sport. We played it for a bit, but not really many people had it. And obviously, when we started racing, just very quickly became apparent that Roy and Court were just a league above everyone else at the time. You kind of really had to out-strategize them to have a chance, and just because on pure pace, you couldn't really match up with them. And it was a bit frustrating the first season because I felt there was some races I could have done a lot better on. I think tyre wear wasn't too great for me. I wasn't very good at tyre management and dropping down the field. I think I finished fourth one season. The second season I missed a few weeks, so I wasn't really high up either. But for me early on, it was just trying to get podiums, and I remember season 2 was frustrating because a lot of races I was thinking, yeah, I felt I should have got a podium, but it just didn't happen for some reason. Cars managed to stick with you, getting you on the slipstream, and you couldn't fight back. Picked the Corvette, which probably wasn't the best car for season 2. The tyre was a bit too strong on it, so it just the tyres just kept burning out too quick. Improved once it got to Lexus, and the tyre wear got better. I got the podium, so I was quite satisfied, but I felt I could have done a bit better. And obviously, the most recent season, I actually felt I had a very good season. It was just the wins didn't really come my way because obviously with the reverse grid for the sprint, where I was finishing near the podium or on the podium a lot, I'd be sort of in the midfield for the race start, and then you've you got like Roy and Court who could just lightning off the line. They'd already be back past you. You had some of the guys who would have a bad feature, so they'd be at the front for the sprint, so you couldn't really catch them. So, yeah, the win didn't look like it was coming, but it's just kind of ironic it was Laguna Seca again. So if the Demons weren't expelled after TGP
Plenty of
Cars getting the
history
title,
there.
it definitely did with that race win. And again, it was just a case of for me, it was just saving the tyres. The Mitsubishi was I really loved the Mitsubishi in the previous season we just finished. I just sort of, because I remember I was testing cars pre-season. I knew I couldn't pick the Mercedes because too many people had picked it before me, so it wasn't available. So I was, obviously with the introduction of Northern Isle Speedway and Special Stage Route X, I was testing cars around the ovals. And the Mitsubishi seemed really quick. So I was like, I'll go with that because it could give me a good chance of winning a race around one of those two tracks. Qualified third at Northern Isle, finished second behind Court because he was just too quick. And then obviously that meant I was towards the back of the top 10 for Special Stage Route X. Couldn't really catch up because it was a slipstream festival already, and I lost a slipstream very early on in the race because my car wasn't the best off the line. But it got to Laguna, and throughout the season I knew I was getting podiums from tyre saving. A lot of guys were making pit stops in races, and I didn't make a single stop all season.
Well, mastering the tyre wear, that was the key one from the most recent season. So, no, it's
it definitely got me a few podiums. I think it was Blue Moon Bay. I had a bad quality. I was like 10th on the grid, stayed out, everyone pitted, and I managed just to hold off Luca for third. And then again at Laguna, I knew from previous seasons I had good pace there. I was managing to keep up with Court and Roy the season before. But when Court managed to stay out that race, Roy pitted, Roy got me on the last lap. But I knew if they both decided to pit and how I was better on tyre wear, I had a chance in the Mitsubishi. And Roy pitted fairly early. Court followed in the lap after, trying to get an overcut, but we had broken away from the field pretty quickly. I think there was a bit of a battle with Lucas, CJH, a couple of other guys for fourth. So very quickly, I had like a good 10, 11 second gap over him. So when the pit stops happened, Roy and Court were sort of in that gaggle, fighting their way through, and I was just nursing the tyres, trying to keep consistent lap times. And it got to a point where it's like I could give away 3 or 4 seconds a lap and I would hold on. And it was coming to the last lap and I could see the time just ticking down, the gap between me and Roy. It was going down. It was like 4 seconds, 3 seconds, 2 seconds. It got down to a second as I got to the last corner, and I just knew I had to just not burn up the tyres and spin out the last corner, and I had the win and just managed to hold on. So I was over the moon with that one.
Stuff. Really good stuff. Really good stuff. Well, Jean, we're nearly at the end of our podcast, but I'd like to sort of ask you the usual questions that we ask, the quick fire questions at the end of the episode. So, first question to you: favorite race track to race on?
Budapest, actually.
Budapest.
It's one of I won my first TGP race ever around there at TGP2 at I can't even remember the season. I think it was like season 4. It's on F1 2012. Was battling with Owen. Owen made a mistake, had spun off. I won by like 20 seconds. So that, and I always went well around there as well. So for me, it's Hungary. Yeah, Budapest.
Excellent. And least favourite track?
I won't go for any easy targets, because if we were going for easy targets, I'd say Vietnam. I hated it. But least favourite for me, I would probably go with China.
Okay, interesting.
I just don't really like the flow of the track. The tyre wear's horrible. I've had some bad races there.
Yeah,
It's a bit weird saying that, because obviously the current TGP1 season, I came fifth there. But
Yeah.
it's actually my worst result so far this season.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, and
But
that's obviously ongoing. Who's
yeah,
the favorite driver to race against?
ooh, that's a good one. I mean, over the years, I would probably go with Roy. Always had good battles with him. He might bring up the one time in No Pain No Rain where I apparently took him out in Brazil, which what happened there was a case of I was so busy fighting the car in front, I had no idea that he was there. So when I went to go for the move on the inside of the car in front, Roy suddenly is there and he flies off the road. But I would say Roy, James, Matt Tierboss as well. I've always had good battles with him, nice and clean racing. Trying to think.
And the least favorite driver to race against?
This one's a bit left field. Early on in F1 2015, there was a guy by the name of Ollie RBR, and racing him was a
fantastic
nightmare.
throwback.
He was a nightmare to race against. I think he was only there for like 6 races, but in at least 3 of them, I ended up on track with him, and the way he would defend, it was a bit like Mazepin crossed with Maldonado and Taki Inoue. It was just a nightmare.
Excellent stuff. Well, Jean, it's been a pleasure having you on our show. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for talking a little bit about your history with us in TGP Series. And obviously, you're taking part in TGP1 at the moment. I'm sure you've got plenty of other things coming up as well. So,
Yeah.
Jean, thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. It's been fun. It's been fun. Thanks, Mike.
Good stuff. Speak to you soon.
Speak to you soon.
Well, there we have it. A good chat with Jean about his time in TGP Series, and he's clearly enjoyed the racing that he has had over the last few years, and hopefully there'll be many more to come from him. Next week is our final episode in the series, and we're going to be chatting to the most successful driver in TGP GT's history. This is, of course, Roy Scorer, also known as Jovial Manatee, as we talk about his history in TGP, including titles in TGP1, as well as his clear dominance in TGP GT. We'll speak to you soon.